Hello friends, and welcome to the second episode of our Chips Challenge playthrough. If you're looking for the start of the series, the link to the Complete Stories playlist is in the description below. First, let me say thanks so much for the enthusiastic support and encouragement on the initial episode. It's always an absolute delight to start a playthrough and be met with immediate views, likes, and supportive comments. Thanks too to those of you who noted ways in which the video's technical aspects could be improved. I've implemented most of those suggestions in this episode. And speaking of comments, if you're wanting a columnist named after you, today might be an especially good time to leave a comment. Winky face. Let me also give a quick apology. It took way longer for me to get the second episode uploaded than I would have liked. I believe/hope that I'll get on a weekly upload schedule before too long. Fingers crossed on that one. Okay, that's enough blather for today. Thanks in advance for the comments, the likes, the subscriptions, and really everything else. Enjoy the episode. When last we spent time with Chip, he'd made himself a club and built a little shack. His food situation was unstable, as was his mood and basically everything else. Nevertheless, by the end of the episode, he found himself in a stronger position than when he started. Here's hoping today continues that trend. As you might expect, a lot of Chip's life continues to focus on the basics. Harvesting berries, failing at harvesting berries, and hauling berries. He perfects his cabin's feng shui by shifting his table just a bit south, and now the qi flows smoothly. Om. Unfortunately, outside, the first chinchilla corpse continues to decay. If it's not field dressed in the next day or so, it'll rot, and then Chip won't be dressed either. For this work to be done well, Chip needs a butchering table, which is far more efficient than the easier to build butchering spot. So it's again back to chopping trees, another task that continues to dominate Chip's wakeful hours. Though he's still a long way from competence, Chip's plant skills are improving, and there's level 2. As he continues to chop, he imagines planting a garden, maybe some rice, corn, even flowers. Thoughts like these fill Chip's prayers as what was that terrible crash? It was a distant noise, and maybe a scream? We have our first transport pod event of the playthrough, a mad scientist named Val. That's a long way upstream. Val's just 14, and he's got scads of passion for cooking, social, and animals. He'd add a lot to Chip's colony. Despite his youth, he's already more able than Chip in almost every respect. Of course, he doesn't have any combat skills, and he's a little bit of a psychopath, but then you've gotta be a little off to join up with a naked stranger. Val wouldn't be willing to do any vacuuming, but then Chip could do that, or so Chip would promise if he knew of this faraway fellow. Let's see what Val believes. He's a little cruel, believing in raiding and slavery, and, oh god, he's gonna eat Chip. Okay, well, how's his health? It's not great. He's not permanently damaged, but 5 hours until bleed out isn't a lot of time to trek to the very edge of the map. Chip, though, is a curious sort, so let's send him and his single dose of herbal medicine to meet this new arrival. By the time Chip packs and leaves, Val has only 3 hours left on this mortal coil, and there isn't a competent doctor anywhere nearby. Nevertheless, Chip journeys on, seeking the source of that strange sound he heard. Was it a loud drum? An explosion? A bit later, and Chip's farther from his home than he's been since arriving. What if that sound was only a falling tree? How foolish he'd feel to have wandered this far, and would he even be able to find its source? Wait, was there even a sound? He's again spent a few days alone, and his mind sometimes plays tricks, reminding him of other people. Maybe it would be better to accomplish a certain goal while way out here than to chase after some half-remembered possible noise. With apologies to Val, it's once more to battle. That awful noise from the south, a scream of anguish, no, it's just the sounds of the lunging chinchilla. But it sounded so the beast is dead and the forest again falls quiet. Though Chip's body again aches, that beast had quite the jump. He's again victorious. Back to camp Chip goes, dropping one animal's corpse outside and another, his own, onto the stone floor. Exhaustion is Chip's default these days, so the night goes fast. As morning arrives, good news. He's healed, the cracks in his skin repaired. Bad news. The unmended cracks in his home's walls continue. He'll have to do something about that. First though, with breakfast sorted, it's time to chop up those increasingly stinking chinchilla corpses. A pile of wood goes to the construction spot, so many hours chopping, so many blisters and sores, and right, he immediately ruins the job. After a brief walk and some mercifully omitted hewing, it's back for attempt 2. This time, success, and halfway to level 2 in construction. Ideally, we'll soon get Chip to level 3. Then he'll be able to construct traps, greatly increasing his home's security. As butchering begins, the rumble of visitors to the north, fancily dressed and with animals in tow, they seem infinitely better off than poor Chip. Regardless, he continues working. They draw nearer, and he worries he seems like a zoo creature, nakedly banging rocks together. But no, they're here to trade, by which I mean to show off their shiny trinkets and useful tools. Oh, how Chip's eyes go wide as the trader displays so many lovely goods. A shining revolver would be such a fine improvement for combat over his current strategy of closing his eyes and swinging his club. But they want silver, and he has almost none. The meager goods he has are worthless to them. What would these traders do with a tiny pile of chinchilla fur? Dejectedly, Chip wanders back to his home, imagining how he'll improve himself. Soon, like the traders, he'd be protected. Where they have clothes and weapons, he'll have a campfire to scare off the beasts. While he mutters about the visitors' orderly wares, he organizes his own possessions. Show them you're a man, not an animal, Chip, he encourages himself. The longer he spends out here, the less sure he is, though, of the difference between human and beast. The trader's civilized presence, however, reaffirms it. Sitting down for dinner, manually mashing his maw with berries, Chip wishes he had a fork. He begins to seethe. Anything to show those stuck-up, coddled city dwellers that he has value. This is his home, and he doesn't need them. How dare they come here unwelcome? Oh. A cruel voice screams out, announcing itself far to the west. "I'm coming for you, naked man! You'll fetch a pretty penny!" Terror replaces indignation, and then decisive words, firmly spoken. "No one interferes with our customers." A reply. "That's right, Tom. Fight!" It's the traders. The haughty, greedy, useless, protective, valuable, salvific traders. Chip hears them running west, their miraculous weapons blasting. The gunfight ends as soon as it begins, and Chip feels sick to his stomach. A come down from adrenaline? Guilt for his earlier mean thoughts? No. While the merchants fought to save the naked man sickened himself on raw berries. He slumps to the floor, his earlier fears confirmed. By comparison with these denizens of technologically advanced civilization, he's only a pitiful zoo animal, dependent on the whims and protection of superior creatures. His spirit shaken, Chip emerges from his home. The others chat and joke, talking of a fight well fought, but he heads to pick through the battle's leftovers. He plans to show them he isn't an idiot. That mace is valuable. Surely he could sell a wooden weapon. The traders hand over a measly few silver, and they look at poor Chip with sadness. This exchange doesn't really matter. They plan to return again here soon. This time, they'll loot his corpse. Unaware of their doubts about his chances, Chip bounds back to the battle site. He'd seen a poorly rolled smoke leaf joint on the ground. Though he knows it would earn him a little more silver, he decides to keep it. After all, he thinks to himself, what zoo animal knows how to achieve chemical bliss? Feeling his confidence returning already, though not his health, his stomach lurches and he heads back home. Through unhappy sleep, Chip hears the traders' ongoing conversations. Would they remain a permanent feature of his home? One visitor wanders in, eating a cooked meal at the table, Chip's only notable possession. What an annoyance. Later, as he snacks, he hears them leaving. His stomach rebels at this new food. Now doubly sick, Chip wishes he weren't alone. He muses on the ambivalence of sociality until a need to vomit interrupts his thoughts. Perhaps we cannot truly be ourselves without another to... Nope, more vomit. Though Chip continues to suffer, work must be done. It's a gloomy affair. Chopping, throwing up, berry picking, throwing up, making a fire, throwing up. You get the idea. Eventually though, despite all those troubles, Fiat lukes. Now the fire emphasizes just how ugly Chip's home really is. After a tiny bit of tidying, Chip cooks his first real meal. It's not clear how he can think of food while his stomach is still upset, but he manages to prepare and then consume a cooked meal. And yes, for the first time in ages, Chip's belly is full and warm. Tonight, starvation kept away once more. The dancing shadows cast by the fire keep him company. And then, another day, another prayer. He thinks on yesterday's affairs. He wasn't particularly nice to those traders, was he? And in the end, all he had for it was an achy stomach. Maybe today he'd maintain equanimity, keeping himself focused on his tasks and improving himself and his surroundings, rather than worrying about everybody else. Heh, other people, Chip chuckles to himself. He's again lost to solitude, but this wasn't necessarily a cause for despair. He'd use this time to continue cultivating a better situation. The first step in his improvement is making his home a little more attractive. The fire's light now illuminates and highlights the dirt floor, the cracked walls, the wreck of it all. Chip's home could definitely be made a little more homey. With a feeling of proud ownership, Chip set to work. A tad bit later, Chip's domain is invaded. His property rights are violated, his sovereign liberty destroyed. He has been returned to the state of nature, the war of all against all. Oh, it left. Chip labors and then sleeps, unaware of this significant threat to his status as a freestanding liberal individual. After a fair bit more repair work, Chip's construction skill remains dismal. To encourage himself, he sets a game. Could he successfully harvest 9 consecutive berry bushes? Doing so would set him up well for the subsequent days. Failing would, well, there wouldn't be any real losses except to his self-image. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is it possible? 9. What luck and joy fills his heart as the berries fill his cabinet. Then meditation. The pot sits empty, so too will I sit empty. My success in plants only a passing moment, ephemeral as the breeze. Or that's what he should have been thinking. Instead, Chip smugly congratulates himself on the earlier success in the Berry Olympics. To celebrate, he decides to make a fine weapon, a bow. Though he understands this idea in concept, his fingers aren't yet dexterous enough for the work. To increase his crafting skills all the way up to 2, he returns to that old standby, crafting the club. Again and again, he cuts trees and shapes their branches. Someday he'll be ready to make a bow. For now though, the trees. Wood piles up, as do feelings of resentment. Why must he fell yet another stupid plant? He feels compelled to continue chopping, though he'd rather do most any other thing. The rain falls and now he's compelled to carry... No, he'd rather not. Chip wanders confusedly, wondering what all of this is for. Does he cut trees only to cut trees? Does he make clubs only to make clubs? Feeling dismay over his sleeping on the ground, Chip falls asleep on the ground. The next morning, he's back to making clubs, only 1,800 experience points needed. Sleep and chopping and clubs, but success, level 2 and with it the possibility of ranged weaponry. A short time later, Chip creates a bow. It's as rudimentary as can be, awfully constructed really, but it is his. Now he can fight enemies at distance, no longer immediately exposing his neck to chinchilla teeth. At this early stage, Chip is gladdened by even the smallest of accomplishments. But what to do with all these clubs? Chip has clearly outgrown his small hovel, he needs additional rooms for his additional possessions. Besides, having completed his 2 levels of crafting, he now needs 3 levels of construction. Expanding his home is a fine way to begin to achieve that goal. Here then is the plan for a storeroom. Ideally, we'd encourage Chip to build this room with stone, but for the moment, wood will do. Later, we'll invite him to explore and deconstruct nearby ruins, but this idea didn't spring to mind until I was writing the script. Whoops. Chip spends another day hammering, nearly achieving level 2 in construction, and heads to sleep. His work is only half done, so a nice breeze keeps him cool throughout the night. He's lucky the temperature is substantially lower than when he first arrived here. We receive a notice that some tasty ambrosia has sprung up a fair piece upstream. Chip is unaware of this tasty treasure growing a few hours' walk away, but will keep it in mind for him to enjoy in 6 days' time. Until then, it's only more construction for Chip. Soon enough though, his storage closet is completed. It's a new and improved cabinet for Chip. He then clears away the mess of items from the main room, giving the base a slightly increased semblance of order. No doubt will keep it all organized well into the future. First though, Chip is eager to try out his new weapon. Let's see what an ingenious fellow with almost no shooting skills and the world's worst possible ranged weapon does against a tiny, scurrying chinchilla. 17 shots later, well done Chip. That's his third chinchilla kill, and the first time he's done it without taking any damage at all. Late that night, Chip decides to engage in a little midnight butchering. Not creepy at all, Chip. That makes 38 fur, still well less than the 60 he needs for his first clothing. More chinchillas must die to contribute to Chip's ongoing clothing quest. Then, some more cooking, level 1 finally, and a bit of tree chopping. Suddenly, though Chip doesn't know it, the colony is hit by a powerful blast of electromagnetic energy. It's a solar flare. He happily ignores this vent, peacefully protected and blissful due to his abject poverty. To continue his way to the third level of construction skill, it's time to create another room for the house. He dreams of a future full of comfort and technology, so let's give him an area to begin his researching. It looks just like so. Another round of building and chopping, and Chip's got a third room. For now though, it'll be better to remove this middle wall. I believe the increased space and value from including Chip's science station in the main room will benefit the quality of his bedroom. Happily, there's no one around to interrupt his sleep. Chip must be satisfied with his day's labor. As he looks around, he sees a larger home with a constructed floor that's mostly covering the grass below. One last task then for today, an improved bow, from awful to poor. Well, it's a step in the right direction. Long hours of sleep later, and another crash. A child. A paralyzed child. Someday this kid will be able to walk, but until then, is it time for Chip to bring aboard someone really and truly dependent? Chip's only 17, and this 5-year-old is about as far away as Val was, though he is not bleeding, just unable to move, for the next 36 days. That's an incredibly long time to care for someone who can't contribute to the base. The kid also has a wooden hand. What's the story there? And he's a blank canvas for education. We return to Chip, who's enjoying a little more sleep, unaware of what an important discovery he'll make if only he explores his map's southwestern corner. What's the best strategy here? What's the right thing to do? Will he starve with another mouth to feed? Will his self-conception die if he doesn't try? Chip sleeps. He'll figure that one out tomorrow. And an elephant too. Okay, have a good snooze, Chip. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again real soon.